Hi, Cole Holmes here with your Mortgage Minute, and today you're going to learn the 6 steps to a successful mortgage. And I'm going to go through those steps really quickly, and then I'm going to drill down on each one of them so you've got a crystal clear picture of what those look like. Step number 1 is the pre-qualification. Step number 2 is the pre-approval. Step number 3 is what I call the processing approval. Step number 4 is the underwriting conditional approval. Step number 5 is the underwriting clear to close, and step 6 is the best. That is the closing and funding. Step number 1, the pre-qualification. Now this step sounds a lot sexier than it actually is. To obtain a pre-qualification, you simply share your information verbally with a lender, your income and your asset information, and then the lender looks at your credit history, and based on the preliminary information that you've given your lender, he or she determines what kind of price range is going to be best for you. It's also important that they determine which price point is going to be most comfortable for you, not just how much do you qualify for, but what lines up with your goals. All right, step number 2 is the pre-approval, and this is highly preferred, carries a lot more weight with it than the pre-qualification. And in order for your lender to what I call elevate your status from a pre-qualification to a pre-approval, simply means that you are supplying the lender with the supporting documentation for your income and your assets. That way the lender can look through there, make sure that there's nothing weird or crazy with your pay stubs. There's not some kind of payroll deductions or anything of that nature. Tax returns especially. Sometimes I have clients that may have a side job and that shows up as Schedule C income. They may write off everything and show an actual loss, and that will actually affect your qualifying income. So step 1, pre-qualification. Step 2 is the pre-approval. Step number 3 is the processing approval. And once you have a contract on a home, this is where the real fun begins. Assuming that your lender already has the required income and asset documentation that you supplied, your processor will then begin reviewing your loan file after you have signed, that's the key word, signed and returned the loan application and all the accompanying disclosures. And it's very important that these documents are returned as quickly as possible, because your processor really won't be able to begin processing your loan file until these are returned. Your processor will then begin ordering all of the required services, such as title policy, title history, the appraisal, insurance, employment verification, Social Security validation, IRS validation for your tax returns, and so on and so forth. Once your processor has all of these required documents, we're ready for step number 4, which is the underwriting conditional approval. Now, at this point, your processor has submitted your full loan file, the whole thing, to the underwriter. Keep in mind that your processor is going to go through, on average, 565 documents just so that they can submit your loan file to the underwriter. Although they go through all of these, on average, 565 documents, they're not sending all those to the underwriter, because they're going to pull all the duplicates and all the unnecessary documents, and they're really going to go through it and just fine-tune that file. They're going to cut it down, trim it down to about 300 documents. So now your underwriter is going to be reviewing, on average, about 300 documents, along with the appraisal and the survey and the insurance and the title history and everything involved in the file. Once she has reviewed everything, once the underwriter's reviewed everything, she will issue what we call a conditional loan approval. And conditional loan approval, because there are typically conditions along with your approval, but this is a small victory, because this basically says that, hey, you and your family, you're approved with some minor conditions. Conditions might be more clarification on a payroll deduction. Maybe there's a divorce with some wage garnishment. Maybe there's a tax lien. Maybe there's a 401k loan and you're paying that back with each paycheck. Whatever the case may be, maybe there's something needed to clear up something on the title history on the home that you're buying. Maybe the insurance needs to read something differently. Whatever the case may be, the approval will have these set of conditions. We will come back to you or your employer or your insurance agent or whoever that may be and chase these conditions now. Once we have those conditions back, we will then submit, your processor will submit those conditions back to the underwriter so that the underwriter can then review the conditions. Assuming that all of those conditions have come back and we've cleared off everything, Maybe the conditions are from your employer, verifying your employment history and your job. Maybe it's the insurance company needs to change a mortgagee clause on an insurance binder. Whatever the case may be, once we have all of those back, the underwriter will review that and issue what is called a clear to close. Another small victory. That means you're golden. That means you're good to go. There's no other conditions on the file. You've been cleared for takeoff. Once the clear to close is received, the underwriter will move your home loan file into our closing and funding department. And my team over there will then begin to prepare closing documents along with closing instructions. Once those are prepared, they will be issued over to the title company. Then the title company will begin preparing what is called a HUD-1 settlement statement. And this is your closing statement that has all of your facts and your figures and numbers and everything on it. Once the title company prepares that, they're going to send it back to me, and I'm going to review everything with a fine comb, make sure all the credits that are owed to you are on this closing statement. Might be the seller tax credit, might be earnest money if you put down some earnest money, might be option money. Maybe you prepaid for your appraisal. Most of my clients do, so we want to make sure that you're given credit for that and not hit for it twice. Once we approve everything and it looks good and we've got that number down, that final cash to close number, we'll then send that back to the title company and say everything looks great. Then we will forward you a copy of the HUD-1 settlement statement. And here's where the fun part begins. After all that checks out and everything looks good, you and your real estate professional will get together and then schedule your closing time. And once the title company has prepared everything checks out on our end, you have your closing time scheduled, you and your family will show up for the day of closing, sign all the documents. Here's one thing to remember though. Make sure that you sign your name, and if there's a spouse involved, that they sign their name exactly how it reads on all those closing documents. If it says John A. Smith, you need to sign it John A. Smith. If it's John Allen Smith, sign it John Allen Smith. If it's John Allen Smith and you sign John Smith, that's what lenders call a short sign, and you may be required to come all the way back to the title company and sign all of those pieces of paper all over again, and we don't want that to happen for sure. So very carefully make sure you read exactly how your name is on the closing documents and sign it just like that. Once you sign everything, once the seller signs everything, the title company will review the closing documents that are all signed. They'll then send them back to my closing and funding team. They'll review everything, make sure everything looks good, and then the title company will be issued a funding number, which is basically like the combination to unlock the code, unlock the lock. You're given the keys, you and your family can then move in. Thank you so much for spending a little bit of time with me for your Mortgage Minute. I'm Cole Holmes with AmeriPro Funding, helping you. Have a great day.